Hi, Ben here, and we're in the workshop today. Now this is pretty much my drill setup when I'm drilling all the holes in my blades for knife making. Now I've come to use this drill bit. Now I actually lent this to somebody and you can see it's pretty much wrecked really. It's got overheated, it's gone all blue on the actual cutting edge. All the corners have been broken off it. So this needs some serious work. So I'm going to show you how I go about sharpening my drill bits in the workshop. Now obviously this will work if you've got a damaged drill bit like this, or even if you've broken a drill bit and got no edge at all, or whether you just need to actually put the cutting edge back on a drill bit that's not too badly sort of damaged really. So we'll take this through to the grinding room and I'll show you how I put the edge back on a twist drill. So I've come through to the grinding room. I've got my tag grinder set up with a fairly worn out 60 grit belt, but that worked perfectly. Now I'm using a knife making sort of belt grinder, but this would work on a bench grinder or any high speed grinder. Now because this drill bit is so sort of badly damaged, and I'm a little bit worried that the sort of the temper will have been ruined in this sort of very front edge of the drill bit, I'm actually going to grind some of this material away so that I'm back into good steel. Now you don't have to do this if you're just putting the edge on the drill bit, but if you've got a broken drill bit or something that's overheated like this is probably worth doing. What I'm going to do is I'm just literally just going to grind away that excess material. I've got a little bucket of water. I'm going to keep dipping it in there and make sure I keep it nice and cool, and that's just going to make sure that I get rid of that damaged steel. So I'll turn the grinder on. So I've removed all that damaged sort of section of the drill bit itself, and as you can see there is no way that that's going to be drilling a hole. So that's sort of like a good sort of starting point for that particular drill bit. Now obviously if you're just touching up the edge that's already on an existing drill bit, you don't have to do that stage. But the next bit that I'm going to do is I'm going to recreate those sort of angled sides to the drill bit. Now I normally grind them roughly at about 20 degrees each side. And obviously we've got to try and make it so that we grind pretty much so that each side ends up in the middle of that drill bit. So I'll turn on the grinder and I'm just going to start putting that initial grind in. Now I'm actually going to hold it at 20 degrees in this plane, and I'm going to hold it roughly at about 10 degrees in that plane. Now if you're not confident in it holding the angles correctly, you could set your little work rest up at a particular angle, but I'm just doing it by feel really. So I'm starting to put that angled slope in. Obviously I'm nowhere near there at the moment, and I've got to bring this side further over to get the centre in the middle of the drill bit. So you can start to see we've got those angled slopes on both sides of the drill bit now. But if we tried to drill a hole at that stage, there'd be too much friction and it just wouldn't work. So what we've got to do now is remove this waste material from the back edge of the drill bit, just leaving about maybe a millimetre of steel at that angle. That's going to be our cutting edge. So I'm just going to hold this at a more of an angle. So that's probably more like sort of 25 degrees, and then I'm just going to roll it round to create that slope. So that's one side done. See how this is the side that I've just ground the angle on, and then this is the side that I've rounded that slope, and that's basically going to allow the waste to be removed really. So I'll do exactly the same on this side now. So now you can see I've got both sides with that sort of rolled in, sort of rounded back edge to the drill bit, and I've got that nice sort of slope that's actually going to be our cutting edge. If anything, you could go probably slightly narrower than that. That's probably like 1.5 mm. Now this is a 6.5mm drill, and sometimes to help make that tip, that very centre of the drill, sort of dig into the metal more, we can reduce these sort of flutes. Now it's slightly awkward to do, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to drift the belt over. I'm just going to use the belt just to roll into that sort of flute of the drill, and it will reduce that centre point thickness, and it will mean that the drill bit doesn't sort of skip all over the metal then. So I'll just do that a little bit. So you can see I've just removed a little bit more material from there just to make that tip slightly sort of thinner basically. So that should pretty much be sharp now. I'm happy with the angles on it, and the most important thing is that I've got those nice sharp corners back. When it was previously, before I started grinding it, those are all broken off from the person that had used it. So now I've got nice sharp corners. This is your sharp cutting edge, and that should work pretty good. Now obviously sharpening a drill bit like this, you're not guaranteed that that is absolutely bang in the middle of the drill bit anymore. So if you're doing precision work, say you're making folding knife parts, I probably wouldn't want to use a hand ground drill bit like this. But if you're just drilling a hole in a piece of steel, that's going to be plenty accurate enough. So we'll go and pop it in the chuck of the drill and we'll see if it cuts. So we've come back through to the pillar drill, and we've got the drill that we've just resharpened. Now this is a high-speed steel drill, so it can cope with a bit of heat, but obviously that end was very, very blue when it was damaged, and I ground off a sufficient amount so that we should be back into good steel. So it should be nice and sharp now. So this is a 6.5mm drill. Now normally if I was drilling a piece of steel with that size drill, I'd probably already have pre-drilled it with maybe a 3 or 4mm drill. But we're going to test it out and see if it will cut straight through there. Now I haven't put a little countersink or anything in there for it to sit in, because that'll be a good test to see if we've got that nice sharp lead spike to it. So we'll turn the drill on and we'll see how it goes. So it's not skidding off the steel, which is a good sign, and it's cutting nicely. We're getting nice coils coming off it. That looks pretty good. That's normally a real good sign. If you're getting nice spirals coming off, it means that it's cutting nicely, and also we've got that nice sort of shaped back end to the angle of the cutting bit, which is actually throwing out those waste bits of steel. So that's a pretty successful job, I think. So take it out of the chuck, and it's always good when you've sharpened a drill bit just to check how it's performing. So I'm looking to make sure that the corners are still nicely intact and there's no damage to those actual cutting edges, and that's looking pretty good. Now obviously if you had just drilled one hole and you see any damage occur, it might mean that you've actually made it a little bit too oblique or too sharp, or you've made those cutting edges a little bit too narrow, so you can always just adjust it. But hopefully that's going to help you sharpen your drill bits, and basically you've taken something that would have basically gone in the rubbish or the recycling, and you've turned it into a reusable, a new drill bit basically. Now the great thing about these skills is you can pretty much sharpen that drill bit all the way until you get rid of that spiral, and then it will go in the recycling. But yeah, you can keep sharpening your drill bits right through until they're basically out in the trash. So I hope that helps, and remember to subscribe to the channel and tune in next time for some more knife making top tips.